Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, I'll tell you, you've heard an awful lot about, well, you haven't heard a lot, you've witnessed the increase in gasoline prices just about every day. Healthcare costs are going up, but uh-oh, what about your electric bill? Are we in for a big rise in electric rates? Stay with us, and you'll find out after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, as you know, we've done programs over the years on healthcare costs. We've done some on gasoline prices. We've done a couple of shows earlier on the electricity competition, and joining me to chat about that is Nora Brownell. She is a consultant. She owns her own company. It's BC Strategies, right?
That's right.
We'll put that plug in for you.
Thank you.
It's an energy consulting company?
It is indeed.
See, I got that right. And she's a former member of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And in this state, for our purposes, the Public Utilities Commissioner, she was one a few years ago.
Yes, 1996, when this all began.
All right. Well, look, here's the deal, and you correct me if I'm wrong. In 2010, electric rates, the caps go off that are these, the ceilings above which rates cannot go. They will officially come off legally, and it is expected that electric rates will go up. They've already gone up in some places in Pennsylvania, but not in very many. So far, so good?
That's correct.
All right, let's go through this. Why do we put caps on electric rates to begin with?
Candidly, it wasn't the smartest thing we ever did, but we thought it was a good way to transition from a regulated, price-controlled market to a competitive market. Never anticipated the run-up in gas prices, coal prices, steel prices. So in retrospect, it wasn't the smartest decision we made, but Pennsylvania's enjoyed a lot of savings as a consequence.
So let me understand this. This was done by the Public Utilities Commission, which is under Pennsylvania law, charged with regulating utilities. So far, so good?
That's correct.
All right. So a decade or so ago, you all put caps on electric rates, which benefited consumers in the short run.
That's correct.
As other prices have gone up, electric rates have not, and now, once they come off, because of inflation and other cost factors that go into generating electricity, you expect the rates in electricity to rise.
I absolutely do. Not unlike the health care, which is 178%, food, which is 87%, cars, houses. I don't think it will be that much, but it will reflect, Terry, for the first time in 10 or 11 years, the actual cost of what it takes to produce electricity and deliver it to people's homes.
Now, we're in 2008. Even I don't know that. Heading towards the... I know that only because of the presidential campaign. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that, Nora. All right, tell me this. Do you have any idea in 2010 what's going to happen to rates? I know that's an unfair question.
I don't know, and it would be unfair of me to predict. I mean, I've heard wild predictions like 100%, 80%, but frankly, in some parts of the state, we've seen reductions. When Duquesne's rate caps came off, we saw savings that were very significant. I think 10, 12, 15% even at one point.
What's the reason for that?
Because I think it was a time to transition. They don't own generation. They'd made good contract decisions. But candidly, let's be honest. We've developed a sense of entitlement to kind of free, cheap electricity. We don't feel that about our cars or our houses. We'd like to feel that way. And so I think it's time, in all candor, that we not only showed the real price, but we give people the tools to manage the buying decisions. They can buy a Cadillac or a Ford, but we don't give them information so they can manage their usage, which would, in fact, drive down prices.
All right, well, let me ask you this question. If I'm not to buy a car, I can buy a Cadillac, a Ford, or a Chevy, or whatever. Do I have a lot of choice about what utility I use? I mean, is that something that consumers can easily change?
Well, in fact, 70% of your cost is generation. And there are competitors in generation, and there's a growing number. We'll have more after the price caps come off. They've been a kind of anti-competitive barrier to entry.
You know, I want to talk about that. We're going to go to a break, but I want to talk about this business of competition. If the caps come off, and you have some choices for how you buy your energy, let's say, will that lower cost? I mean, typically you'd think it would lower cost. I'll let you think about that. I know you know the answer. You don't have to think very long. We'll be back in a moment for another segment of Pennsylvania Newsmakers.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. I'm talking with Nora Brownell. We're chatting about something I don't think maybe you want to hear, the potential of increasing electric costs once the caps go off in 2010. You know, I ask you this question about competition and will the prices go up or down, and is there a chance they actually could go down if consumers get sort of wise and they think about what alternatives there might be?
Well, if you remember that we've been paying prices that were set 10 years ago, in some cases 22 years ago, they're not going to go down from there. I mean, it's a very different world. But in my view, the more competitors you have, the more price compression and choice there is. Because if the Walmarts of the world want to stay in the marketplace, they work hard to develop attractive prices every day, to beat Target, to beat whomever.
Right.
I think the same thing will develop, and in fact we've seen it in some markets, in competitive retail pricing. I think also you'll begin to see competitors offer more. They'll offer different kinds of meters, different pricing programs, so that if you want to manage...
So you think, what you're saying is you think that once the marketplace gets involved, which it may not be now because with the cap it may deter innovation.
That's correct.
You see, I'm not as dumb as I look here sitting here about these. I actually did okay in freshman economics when I was in college, but we won't talk about that. But you get the point. I mean, I think that as we chat about this, the innovation that may follow deregulation may in the long run make for, well, actually, electric's pretty stable, but make not necessarily for lower cost, but maybe for more innovation in terms of how electricity is used, perhaps, maybe?
Absolutely. I spend a lot of my time looking at new technologies, whether it's meters in the home, whether it's homes that are wired, so that automatically, if prices reach a certain point, your air conditioning doesn't turn off, it turns down a little bit, your lights go down a little bit, to different delivery systems. Fabulous new solar technologies that prices are coming down, wind, distributed generation, new automobile, building materials. This is a time when the world is really changing. And you have to remember, Terry, the energy sector in this country hasn't changed in 70 years. Wow. Whatever part of your life hasn't changed.
Well, let me ask you this question. We've heard a lot lately. In fact, Governor Rendell has been on this program many times. We've had other lawmakers talk about all these investments that have to be made in roads and bridges. Boy, we've beaten that to death. Not that we shouldn't. It's a really important older infrastructure. We don't talk much or haven't thought much, I think, as Pennsylvanians and maybe other states as well, about the necessity to upgrade the infrastructure for energy development in electricity, maybe in some other areas of the energy market as well. How serious a problem? Did caps sort of retard that?
I think caps retarded it. I also think we tend in this country to be quarter-to-quarter thinkers. We don't do long-term investments. We live on our great-grandparents' largesse. They sacrificed, and this is our legacy. We have almost $1 trillion in needed energy infrastructure investments in this country. Now, that's not limited to Pennsylvania. We need to be smarter and more financially disciplined than the days when we built nukes and they ran 20 times over cost. We can't afford that now. And we need to do it better, more efficiently, and let people have some options about what they want and when they want it.
One of the things we didn't talk about was sort of the increase in prices that we've seen in other areas of the energy sector. We talked about competition from, so that we've had increases in coal and increases in natural gas, I guess, and increases in fuel oil. Has that made electric itself, because of the caps, protected so that it's a better deal to go to electric, maybe?
It certainly...
Or is that a dumb question?
No, it's not a dumb question at all. What it's done is really hidden the costs from us so that we don't really know. And when people know what they're paying, they make choices. In California, in the midst of the energy crisis, the governor put price caps on. Right. One company went bankrupt, two almost went bankrupt. But in San Diego, they had 2 weeks where people saw real prices, and they were ugly. Right. And guess what? They reduced their usage by almost 20% overnight. See the cost, get disciplined, make my buying decisions. All right, this is an important topic. It's one that we've dealt with maybe once before, and we're going to come back to it in future shows. Electric rates, the caps are going to go off. We'll be back for an additional segment after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. All right, let's look. One of the things that we hear constant complaints about from lots of folks is that they just don't know enough about, or to be candid with you, some just don't care enough about it. But it's like anything else in society. You've got to get information in order to make intelligent decisions. How much, but I don't know how much consumer information is available. I'll ask that, but first, is there a relatively low level of information by the general consumer about this whole subject? I think there has to be. Absolutely. I think that the industry and others who care about this need to do a better job of educating people. When we introduced electric choice 10 years ago, we were on TV, we had 24-hour manned telephones, we had a lot of consumer information, we had them in liquor stores, bus stations, we had them everywhere. That's the kind of thing we need to do. We need to develop internet-based games so people can plug in and play simulations. We need to be better and treat the customer, and remember they're customers, not ratepayers. Treat the customers as the smart people they are. Give them information and let them make choices instead of politicians dictating political solutions to what are really financial issues that every one of us must face. All right, before you go, in the final analysis, it still boils down now after, how long is it, 10 years? 10
it's been
years?
About 10 years,
10 years since the caps were put on. You agree, and John Hanger, who's been on this program before from Penn Future, he's the guy we sort of go to when we talk about this stuff. Bottom line here is we need competition is absolutely essential when these caps come off. And you know there may be efforts in the legislature, they're talking about it to maintain caps in some form. Your advice would be? My advice is absolutely don't tinker with the price caps. There could be transitions, and that's okay to get people used to it. It's a difficult, but hiding prices is a bad thing. It discourages investments. And what competition brings is outside investors taking the risk. The old model, the poor customer took all the risks. We paid for the cost overruns in nukes. We paid for bad decisions. In this, a competitive environment, the investor pays. And I think that's a more appropriate role for investors to play. And there's lots of money out there. I spend a lot of time with capital providers in Washington and around the country. That's good to hear. Hey, thanks for coming on. Thank you. Our popular financial literacy update is next. Stay with us. Back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program for Financial Literacy Update Time. Joining me today, Greg Smith. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania State Employees Credit Union. I'm a member.
All right.
So you got to be careful. As I say, I own this segment. No, as always, it's great to have you on. And, of course, Mike Wishnow is back, Senior VP from the PA Credit Union Association. Look, guys, let's talk a little bit about something that we haven't done for a while. We can get a little update here on the use of debit and credit cards. I know this sounds like a simple subject. Let me start with you, Greg. Talk a little bit about the expansion of credit cards and some of the concerns that you have as a financial officer.
Well, credit card use has gone through the roof, basically. Consumers use cards now where they used to use cash. We've seen ATM transactions declining as a result of that because people use their debit cards, and they're encouraged to do that. And it's actually, in most cases, a safer and more convenient way to transact business.
You know what's interesting? So, you know, I didn't realize that. So you mean people aren't going and sticking the card in, getting the cash out, Michael, as much as they used to? That's out?
Right, yeah, you're using it at the point of sale.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that's sort of fascinating, I find I'm in a line in a convenience store and somebody's using a card. $1.75, $2.50. No, yes? I mean, using it for real small amounts. Is that now 10 years ago or whatever? That wasn't done, was it?
Well, more and more, McDonald's is now accepting debit cards. So sure, the dollar transaction, I'm sure, Greg, you're seeing is probably lower on average.
Well, I'm not sure about those very small transactions.
Oh, in college campuses, you ought to see them.
I can imagine. I did read something recently. Retailers, of course, pay interchange for when the cards are used. And I saw something where a retailer association was saying that it was, if somebody was going to buy a pack of gum, it was actually better if they stole it.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Oh, I could. Oh, yeah. Because I understand from the store's point of view, because they got to pay.
No, I'm not encouraging.
No. We understand. You're just using an analogy. Yeah. That's fine. Well, look. Why is this? Is it easier just because you don't have to carry cash and you got a transaction record when you use a credit card? Is that the?
I think that's a big factor.
Yeah,
sure. I think that's right, and I think also. As more and more people go to online banking, you know, they're not writing things down in checking account in registers anymore. They're checking their balances on the online. And
oh, you mean like the rest of us when we write a check and then we go back 2 weeks later and we forgot to put the, you know, we forgot to put where did we write that check to? You don't have to worry about that, I guess.
Correct, if you're doing online banking.
Yeah. Well, let's turn to another subject, Greg. The fraud involved here. Are you seeing a larger amount of fraud than we have in the past years, or are these? I know you folks have been really on us, properly so, to be careful and to take steps. Is it up or down?
It's up.
Still up.
Yeah, mainly because there are more cards out there, and there are more fraudsters that try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, Mike, do you think we get all these emails? Over transmissions over the internet to buy cards. Is that something that we should be doing? I mean, is that okay? I mean, what steps would you take to someone? Would you recommend to someone who's using the internet to get a credit card, or isn't it any different than if you got an application in the mail?
Correct. I mean, you want to know who your issuer is. You want to do business with someone who you know and who you can trust, and you know, who has a reputation in the marketplace. You know, Greg, we were talking earlier about it's where you go on the internet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about ID theft and phishing scams and things like that. Some of the things that we try to alert our members to, warn them about. One analogy that I thought of before was, you know, your mother probably told you there are parts of town you probably ought not go because it's not safe. Well, there are parts of the internet that are not safe either, and you ought to avoid because it's you know, there are all kinds of technology out there now for infecting your PC with spyware or Trojan viruses. A lot of things.
I mean, do you think that people don't care in part, or I don't care, that's not the right way, but they lack considerable concern because of the protection. I mean, aren't most of these cards, you know, you pay $50 or something and it's over and you think,
consumer
okay.
protection is great, but
it has a downside.
Well, the consumer has some responsibility too. And,
yeah. Yeah. Well, look, Mike, if you're going to give people some advice here, which we do regularly on this segment, which I think is why it's such a great segment, what would you tell consumers they should do to regularly protect themselves against getting, you know, fraud or ID theft or...
Well, I think first and foremost, safeguard your information. Safeguard your card numbers, safeguard your PIN numbers. Don't respond to some of those emails that Greg was talking about. Your financial institution is not going to ask you for your Social Security number or for your account number. They already know that.
Right.
Those kinds of things are the easiest ways.
Now wait, I'm going to interrupt you. Sometimes they ask for that last 4 digits when you're dealing with people. Is that okay? The last 4?
When you are being contacted by your financial institution,
they will not ask that. But the other way around, if you're checked, go ahead. I know
they'll use it as a way of confirming your identity. But again, as Mike's indicating, you've called them.
Yeah, I got it. So you know you got the institution, and it's not someone.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, Terry, there are even things when you get calls in. There are ways that fraudsters can mask the caller ID. Yeah. So they can hold themselves out as being somebody who, you know, you would think that just by checking the caller ID that would be a good defense. It's not.
Oh, you mean when they call?
When they call you.
So the point is, I mean, if you have a concern about that, and somebody calls you, maybe the best thing is to say, give me a number, I'll get back to you, but then go and check, because obviously if it's your financial institution or your credit card company, you have a way to get to them.
Absolutely.
Is that a better way to do it?
I think that'd be good advice.
Yeah. I mean, this is all really helpful. Before I let you go, let's talk a little bit about something we've dealt with in the past. We only have 30 seconds. Identity theft. What is it that people ought to do if they think they're a victim?
Well, if they think they're a victim, absolutely file a police report.
Okay.
Contact your financial institutions immediately. Okay. And make sure that things get canceled. Is that what you would say, Greg?
Absolutely.
All right, great update as always. Thanks for coming in. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, you all stay well.